This is a long one, guys. For some reason, I mean, Raj really cooked this patch. Honestly, this is probably like my favorite patch of this year. It's like unreal how many changes Rad put in the game. Like, thank you, really. Although I'm kind of sad because I think they're probably going to revert some of these changes, like the moment, a patch or two after Worlds hits, just to preserve solo queue, because the pros are going to be playing on the same patch, right? Okay, a few changes are still in flux, so that means they might add more. Aurora, we're optimistic that the issue with Aurora and Chrono Break will be resolved by the patch, and so we're hopeful that Aurora will be re-enabled in the Worlds patch. Okay, my personal thoughts is that I think it's like a big failure that Aurora was disabled for so many weeks of playoffs. And I think because the champion got... I personally think the correct thing to do is to disable the champ at Worlds, unironically. Because she was not played in any playoffs patch, I unironically think the correct thing is to do is to just disable the champ for Worlds too. But they're not going to do that. Yeah, it's kind of failed that Aurora was not in Pro for so long because of that. But I think if the Chrono Break thing didn't exist, she would have been in Pro for sure. As it's played out, pros and elite players have been extremely good at capitalizing on her R-engage range, and we're taking some of the training wheels off and enabling this type of engages and picks now that players are a lot better at that. She has W to enable some of these tricky engages, and we'd like her to be a little bit more reliant to pull those off. The 700-450 wall jump change will mean that most of the large walls will no longer be able to be jumped, only the thin ones. Her jump distance on pressing R without the wall is also being reduced. Players will need to be much more selective about their engages now, and her ultimate will lock down champions for last time, which will give her slightly less time at lower ranks to R, back portal assassinate and portal back, or at least put a tighter time pressure of the play. We expect fleet nerfs to impact Aurora more in top lane and harm her ability to be flex. Well, okay. I think everything they're saying here makes sense. The fleet thing doesn't really matter. Aurora top should not be playing fleet. It's bad anyway. Aurora top should go electrocute or comet or whatever. Systems or Ahri. Lane swaps. As League has matured, players and teams have gotten much better at utilizing and resisting lane swaps as well as min-maxing laning phases. This has gotten to the point where teams are willing to go down 3 to 4 plates to avoid certain matchups while resulting in low interaction states. Viewers don't sign up to watch 3 versus 0s, and I don't think pro players are signing up to play that either. The changes here are making the first plate in top take twice as long, while the plays that are dropped in bot lane are going to be far more significant, especially off the first crash. I think everything that I just read is beautiful. Like, especially this line. Viewers don't sign up to watch 3v0s, and I don't think pro players are signing up to play that either. Thank you. I'm really happy that Riot is trying to further address lane swaps coming into Worlds, because honestly, part of the reason why, was it MSI or EWC, like, was so fucking bad to watch was because of lane swaps. I personally hate watching them. And as a player, I also would hate playing them. AP items. Systematically, we're looking to buff some Mage Burst items to bring up the power of Lianji. We currently believe Lianji is not too strong, but that the other items are too weak or not shaped in the right ways. The Storm Surge threshold is being reduced here to make it easier for mages to proc over melee champions who typically have less frequent, more bursty traits. We're bringing the other items up to that level. Lianji, Lichbane and Horizon. AD ecosystem. Fleet is receiving a big nerf for range champions. Overall, we think this is doing a lot to make it hard to assail ADCs in mid lane. We also, so first of all, I think ADCs in mid lane are almost completely dead. Maybe there's like a little bit of Tristana Corki. I honestly think they're not even that good. I think it's just pros being stuck in their own base. We also overnerfed the room for melees, and so a bunch of these changes are to counteract some of the nerfs somewhat. Melee healing is mostly back to where it was before. Additionally, there are some nerfs to BT and shield buff for range. In general, we think ADCs are too durable holistically, while the melees who built those items are overall fine. We've seen sentiment that this is gutting of the items, which seems a bit strong of take. BT has been a bit too strong on certain champions for a while. We're not intending to make the items weak, just a little bit more balanced. I agree with the line of BT. I definitely 100% agree that BT is overtuned. I think another item that gets no mention, and I think is overtuned and gets no mention, is Shidebreaker. I genuinely believe Shidebreaker is an overtuned item. But we're not there yet to nerf it. We're not there yet. In top lane, we're trying to add a few more situational picks in Malphite, Jax. Buff are undecided currently. But Malphite is getting buffed? Oh yeah, okay. Gnar, though this is mostly compensating fleet nerfs, and Shen. Rumble will be receiving a nerf, and Gnosis is mostly unchanged for top lane. We expect him to be an effective situational counter pick there. Jungle. In jungle, we have a good diversity of champions in AP, tanks, enchanters, and fighters. However, we're looking to get a bit more variety in there and tapping down some of the top champions. We'd like to see Viego, Jarvan, Xin balance out the roster a little more AD-wise so that AP champions don't feel as pinched about their pairings. Mid lane. Mid is having a lot of changes here. We're getting Ahri back in the meta and some indirect buffs to the other champions like Syndra and Orianna. We've also buffed a few champions recently that should be situation viable, Ryze, Lissandra, TF, etc. So this is a lie. They said that indirect buffs to champions like Syndra and Orianna, right? So first of all, I think Orianna should not really be itemizing Shadow Flame or Storm Surge, maybe Shadow Flame a little bit, but the Luden's change is going to be a nerf for both champions, personally. And then Syndra should also not be buying Storm Surge or Shadow Flame, because I think Cosmic is much better. So this is like kind of meh, I think. This is like not true for Worlds at least. Of course, some of the ADCs in mid are being directly hit. Smolder's Ahri, Corki, and Aurora is expected to make an appearance as well. Azir is expected to be hit by Fleet Nurse, but he has some ready-to-go replacements in Conqueror and some situational answers in the meta, as well that are being directly and indirectly buffed. Overall, we hope mid has a lot of shakeups. Bot lane, overall, the bot lane meta is quite utility-focused, as many carries are in mid lane mean that bot can afford to bring less damage. I kinda don't agree with that. To me, I don't really agree with this. To me, it's more like ADCs are starting to suck, so you pick utility, because utility ADCs have more value when ADCs suck, like hypercarries. We're aiming to add a little bit more Jinx back in meta and some increases to Samira's early game damage to help her with trading power of all lanes. I kinda doubt Samira is ever gonna return to pro, even if they do like a little bit of a buff to her. I think she's way too weak to be played in pro, way too weak. I think like with item nerfs, like Shilbo getting nerfed and stuff, and BT getting nerfed, and the way itemization is and the way Samira stats are, I don't expect her to return. MF as one of the top champions is getting a nerf to both her item and her base AD. Not looking to make a huge swing here, and if we still want her to be present in the meta. Varus was overbuffed in the previous patch, and so we're scaling it back. Well, thank you. I would be really fucking sad if Lethality Varus was kept in this state. One of the most brainless, disgustingly overpowered champions. I have no fucking clue who was smoking what at Riot to implement that buff last patch. That was absolutely fucking ridiculous. Ziggs has been pretty relevant with all the AD mids action, but we expect his presence to reduce with a reduction of those AD mids and a direct nerf. I honestly also don't think it's a lot about AD mids being played. I think the reason why Ziggs is so good is because number one, fantastic champion lane swaps. Number two, because ADCs are starting to suck. And I think Ziggs is just a naturally much better bot laner than mid laner. His roll power, at least. Which is, I think, the same reason why I wouldn't be surprised, and I think we should be seeing Hui ADC on Worlds patch. Like, if pros are smart, I think pros should be playing Hui ADC. No joke, I think it's really good. Support. Overall, the support meta is in a decent spot. While the range supports aren't as prevalent in the meta other than Senna, they're still doing quite well in solo queue. We're bringing most of the top champions down as a result. Ral and Lona are receiving direct nerfs, but we're buffing Lulu. Okay, I think this makes sense. Thank you, Ralner, finally. God knows how many patches she's been overpowered. Kind of feels like she's Rod's favorite baby at this point. I don't know. Okay. Won't be doing another preview tomorrow, as this entails mostly full change list. So, okay, there's a lot here to uncover. There's a lot to uncover. Okay, so let's go champ one by one, because this is a lot. And there might be more, by the way, when they release the actual patch. Ahri, I already commented on this. This is insanely big buff. I truly believe Ahri will be back in meta. I think she should be. Maybe not blind, maybe not every game, but I think most of the games she's totally fine blind. I think she's versatile. I think she fits most comps, especially with AD junglers. I think the AD junglers that are potentially good at Worlds are probably something like Lee, Viego, Kha'Zix, and Jarvan. I think like Worlds has these 4 junglers that are really solid, in my opinion. They're all paired with Ahri really well. I think this buff is really good, and if you play Ahri next patch, you should be maxing E second. W second will not be correct anymore. Gnar will get 3 AD, so Riot is compensating Gnar buff because Fleet is getting nerfed. I think this makes sense. I think Gnar might still be playing Fleet. I don't think PTA is that good. He could swap to PTA. I don't think Conqueror is that good. Some games maybe Conqueror is going to be fine. But like 3 AD is like a fine laning phase buff. Pros will definitely like this buff more than solo queue players. Then we have Hui support. So they did put a Hui buff in. I was really shocked when I read it. WW shield strength for allies is from 50% to 75%. I think this is not going to buff Hui enough, not even close. It's not even close to make Hui support be playable at Worlds. It's never happening. This is like a nice placebo buff for Hui support in solo queue. And Hui mid lane in pro and in solo queue is like okay buff. Like, it's like a decent buff. In general, I think Hui double W is like a really strong ability early game. I don't think it's a good ability late game. I think in late game, it's like not a bad shield, but it's not a strong shield. I personally find it weird that this ability with like 900 AP still shields very little, in my opinion, considering the cooldown of the ability is very long. However, I kind of get Riot here. It's an AoE shield. Technically, it can be of 5 people, right? So Riot is trying to like be careful with that, over buffing this ability. Okay, then we have Jarvan forward. Passive damage goes from 7 to 8%. I am 100% convinced that Jarvan is overpowered. After this buff, he will be overpowered. I'm 100% convinced. I think he has decent itemization, Eclipse, Under Sky with Spirit Visage, whatever he wants third. I think the champ is really strong. I fully expect Jarvan to be one of the better AD junglers at Worlds. Whether pros will realize that or not is another discussion, but I think Jarvan will be low-key OP. Jax, we're not gonna say anything, there's no buffs yet. Jace, so the true in a Jace buff, melee Q slow up by 5% and range E haste. So that's like range E gate move speed. Haste by 5%. And both buffs are when you max out the ability, so the Q buff is like a little bit bigger than the E buff because the E buff you max it fully last. Overall, these are placebo buffs to Jace. I don't think we're gonna see much Jace. I think Jace is not very good because he got so many indirect nerfs, such as cooldown being worse, such as First Strike being a lot worse, itemization like opportunity got nerfed for Jace. There's a lot of things that happened over the last few patches that made Jace worse. I don't expect to see Jace. This is placebo. Jinx, attack speed growth up by 1.4. So when I saw this, like to me, if anything, this just makes this just makes Lethality Jinx better than the crit Jinx build, right? Because there's like some build on Lethality Jinx that people are playing right now. And I feel like just increasing the attacks, but like Lethality Jinx is like happier with this than crit Jinx, honestly. But honestly, like this is a small buff. I don't think we're gonna see Jinx at Worlds because of this. At least we shouldn't. So Lulu, passive damage per bolt up by 2. Yeah, small buff, but still a good one. Especially like this can be used multiple times in auto attack trades. This is like a solid bot lane buff in laning phase. Overall, also a little bit of a mid lane buff to Lulu. I think Lulu mid is not too bad. This is fine. Yeah, this is fine. Nothing too special. Very small buff, I think. For sure, like less than 1% minute of this. Modified passive shield, 9 to 10% HP. So the first thing that came to my head when I saw this was that I think League of Legends has come to such a like a weird state where like these champions like that are really outdated, like Nasus, Modified, that have like these very simple kits that need to be fueled with these numbers. These numbers have gotten so big, I feel like, over the last 13 years of leagues existing. Like 10% max health is an insane number, in my opinion. However, like a Cho'Gath too, yeah, this is a good... Yeah, Cho'Gath also has like insane numbers, right? And I honestly think this is fine. It's not going to like make Malphite magically so much better that pros are not going to consider picking him. Malphite is and will be a situational pick. That's it. So Samira then gets an early game buff. This is an ability she maxes first. The only thing she's getting is 10% total AD, I think, percent scale on Q. So this is buffed first level, 7 levels of the game, right? 8 levels. Level 9, when this ability is maxed, Samira is not going to be buffed. This is, in my opinion, very placebo buff. So this is like giving you what, like 10 extra damage in lane on Q? Like that's like good for solo Q. Nothing for pro, really, in my opinion. We're not going to see Samira on pro. No way. Shen. So before I read the Shen buff, which is a passive shield buff, Shen already got a very big buff, actually. A couple of patches ago, people forgot, where his passive now, like, cooldown goes down, like, linearly or something. I don't know. So basically, like, his passive is way more often up, which was a huge buff to Shen. And here they're buffing pretty big, honestly. Like, I feel like this Shen buff is really big. Like, 1% plus bonus health and 20 damage on the 20 shield on the flat on the passive. Like, it's really good. I think it's really good buff. It's really good buff. I don't know what to say. Yeah, it's just a good buff. Viego, base AD plus 3, Q monster damage minus 5. Clear speed is gonna be even. Everything else, Viego is gonna be doing fine. Bit of a bigger buff for lane Viego, but it doesn't really matter because jungle Viego is gonna be played at Worlds probably. And I think Viego, as I said, he's top 4 junglers for me, for AD junglers. Like Viego is like one of the top 4 best junglers, I think. And then since our armor growth, cute bonus damage goes up a little bit. I don't think these Xin Zhao buffs are that big. I don't think Pro should be considering Xin that much. I don't think it's that good of a champion personally. I think the other 4 that I mentioned are better. That's about it. Not very big Xin buffs. Okay, then we have some interesting, right? Because like there's a lot of buffs, but there's also a lot more nerfs, okay? So number 1 is Aurora. They are removing or nerfing a part of her that is definitely abused more by elite and pro level of players, right? This is like a high Aurora nerf. Our jump max distance reduced by 200. So now it's going to be like much harder to get like across the walls to engage with ult, which was a trick that really good Aurora players did in certain fights. Our wall jump forgiveness goes down. So it's like if you fuck up the jump, the game would push you through the wall. Now it's like less forgiving. So it's like a nerf too. And then our duration is going to be reduced to 2 seconds to 3. So this means that Aurora at rank 1 of R will not be able to like R, go into R, do the spells, and then R back into their initial position. I think on rank 2, it might not actually be possible either. But I think on rank 3, it still will be. So that's kind of how I see it. I think definitely very big. But this also means that duration of R is lower, guys. This means that the cage exists less time. This means that champions are not trapped as long, okay? This is a massive nerf to Aurora. I honestly think she's going to suffer a lot from this in Hyla. Because these are Hyla specific nerfs. So Azir, this is true. There's a mosquito. I'm gonna clap it. I missed it. It already bit me once. So Azir, is getting preemptively nerfed because even though Fleet got completely gutted, the reality is that Azir abuses PTA and Conquer really well, and the reality is that Azir is Pro's favorite baby, right? So I really like what they're doing this. Riot would never do this. Riot would never do this in years in the past. But this time, they actually nerfed Corki and Azir just so that they make sure we don't see them. So they're gonna fuck up these champions' win rates in solo queue completely for 2 weeks and then probably gonna rebuff them. Just so they don't happen at Worlds. I really respect it. I really respect it. Our damage goes down ridiculous amounts, especially on rank 3 and AP scale. I mean, this is huge nerf, guys. Now, I do have to admit something. I think Azir has one of the best ultimate damages in the game. Like, this number with this AP scale is insane. I mean, I definitely, like, I'm shocked that his ultimate has this much damage in the first place. I think this is way more reasonable. However, this nerf is pretty extreme, especially in Pro. Pros are really good at using ult for damage, right? At the correct times. Corki losing 20 damage on Q, absolutely massive. I mean, massive change. First of all, I don't think Corki is that good, but the reason why pros will still play him is because they're well practiced on it, and the champion still has like really good wave clear, right? And they played it. Dude, this mosquito is triggering me. And they played it for like so long, right? They played it for so long, for so many years or months, whatever. I think this is like a really good Corki nerf, and I don't think Pro should be playing it. Even when I was watching LEC, right, G2 Fnatic Final, before it was like G2 BDS or G2 Mat, like there was a lot of Corki, and it felt like Corki even wasn't that good. He was just doing, dude, I need to kill it. He was just doing like the classic things that Corki does. Ivern getting a nerf, 10 damage off shield, 5% slow on E. Really good to Ivern nerfs. Champion is OP. We might see him in Pro by certain players. Yeah. And then we have Leona, 4 minus armor. I think Leona will still occasionally be played in Pro for sure. And Leona is still good. 4 armor is not going to make or break the champion. Lilia, another Lilia nerf. I literally called out Riot last patch that they placebo nerf Lilia, that she's still monster OP. Happy they're going for another nerf. This time an actually useful nerf. Passive monster cap damage goes down by a lot. This is going to massively decrease Lilia's clear speed. Like seriously, massively. Because this number got nerfed twice. And then this one, really, really big fan of this. Lilia, our sleep duration is going to be 2 seconds at every rank. I have to admit that Lilia ultimate at level 16 onwards was one of the most broken ultimates in the game. 2.5 sleep duration on AoE and multiple champions when people don't have a lot of tenacity and don't run clans was giga busted. Unreal levels of busted. This is a really good nerf. Thank you so much. Lissandra. As predicted, Lissandra is getting nerfed before Worlds. Riot knows her win rate is too high in solo queue and she's OP. Pros are just not realizing it. I've been saying she's OP. Q AP ratio down by 10%. Actually a pretty decent Lissandra nerf because again, main ability. AP ratio is really high. Now it loses 10%. So now when you're past early game, the buff that she got with 20 damage is actually worse. Like Lissandra mid to late game is actually going to be doing less damage than with the buff that she got previous patch with 20 damage. Right? When she gets past 200 AP basically. But the reality is that I think Lissandra is still good, and the reality is that the base damage buff that she got on Q is very important because it allows her to survive lanes easier, which is like a weak point of Lissandra. So I think Lissandra will still be good. I just don't think she will be insanely OP, maybe a little bit more situational. I still think she's gonna be good, and I still think Pro should probably be playing her situationally. Maokai E cooldown, up by 2 seconds. E brush duration, scales a bit worse. So, okay, here they're doing another nerf to try to like just nerf Maokai so we don't see him in Pro. They're doing like a Pro skewed nerf because he's like a huge part of like vision control in Maokai. However, I think Riot is kind of missing the mark here. A huge reason, in my opinion, why people play Maokai in Pro is Q, W, and ult, especially Q and ult. I think the E is probably the least important spell in Maokai jungle, in Pro. Like, E used to be the best spell, now it's like probably the least important one, the way Riot like shaped up Maokai abilities. So I think here they missed the mark. They should be nerfing Q or ult if they want like a Pro specific nerf on Maokai. Misfortune down by 2 AD. Not too long ago she got buffed by 2 or 3 AD, so that kind of like reversed that buff that she got, plus BT being nerfed. I think Misfortune is going to lose a lot of win rate of this. I don't know if pros are still gonna play at Worlds, possibly, although I think she's gonna be much weaker, and I think like alternatives like Jhin, AP mages, or maybe even Ashe are probably maybe gonna be better, or maybe even Kai'Sa. So honestly, kind of worrying. I think Misfortune with this nerfs is probably gonna be on the verge of falling out. E damage on Nasus is going to go down. This is going to massively nerf mid-lane Nasus especially. Now it is true when Riot said that top-lane Nasus can still exist as a counterpick. The problem with top-lane Nasus is it's more susceptible to lane swaps. And there's less matchups in the game where you can just outright Q-max on Nasus on top lane. You have to still do some points into E. This is going to also nerf top-lane Nasus. Nasus is probably not going to be played in Pro with this nerf coming in. Rel, initial E move speed goes down. Maximum E move speed also goes down. This is a good Rel nerf, very good. Her E is definitely giving her insane amounts of move speed, and this is going to make her not only engage fights much weaker, but also disengage fights. There's a lot of fights where Rel goes in, then remounts and gets a shit ton of move speed with E, right? And this is going to also nerf that. This is like a really, I think, really good nerf for Rel. I think this is like a really good direction to nerf Rel. Rumble, I already read those, so Q is gonna be less damage in early and mid and late game, and E is gonna have less damage. Yeah, I mean, Rumble, I don't know, maybe some teams are still gonna play him. I don't think he's very good. I think the champion is pretty bad. Smolder, okay, so this is like a pro skewed Smolder nerf as well. So first of all, his Q damage goes back to 15 to 55, which was the damage in the past. This was before the buff Smolder, okay? That's the first thing. So this is like, okay, they're reverting that buff that they did a couple of patches ago. Then they're removing AP ratio from Smolder Q. So now, like, this doesn't matter because you're not supposed to buy AP items in Smolder. I've been saying this for God knows how long. But if you buy Lianji, which a lot of pros are doing because they're dumb, this is like even a bigger nerf for them, because Lianji now is even worse than Smolder. You should not be buying Lianji and Smolder anyway. This AP ratio nerf doesn't do absolutely anything if you know how to itemize. And then the W global damage, or glob, I think that's like explosion. No, that's like the first instance, I think. Goes down by 5. Okay. Yes, Smolder is nerfed. He's going to be weaker. However, I think the champion is still completely fine. Like, if you pick him in the right spots, if you triple flex him, if you know how to play him. Pros are not very good at playing Smolder, personally, in my opinion, even though he's a simple champion. If you build him correctly, know how to play him, he's still good. So he should still be present at Worlds, if pros are not dumb. Varus, QAD ratio goes down by 20%, EAD ratio goes down by 10%. Guys, if anything, this just shows you how incompetent the Varus buffs last patch were, and that they completely overbuffed him because they're fucking idiots, whoever did that change. Thank you for nerfing him, holy moly. Yeah, I mean, okay, this, I don't think, I think this is probably enough to kill Varus. I don't know, it's close. Vi, Q damage goes back, so they did a Vi buff like a patch or two ago. Now they just revert the buff. 10 less damage in Q, whatever. Zari. So I read this like already before. TLDR is that the passive zap is getting heavily nerfed, and this is definitely a very pro-skewed lever. I think Zari solo lane is not good anyway, and I don't even know why they're nerfing it. I think like LCK playing it, they're completely in the wrong. This champion is not good solo lane. Ziggs is getting a massive nerf on tower. Pro-skewed nerf because they're trying to make Ziggs not be meta at Worlds too much, because Ziggs is amazing in lane swaps, and Ziggs kills towers in pro. Passive structure mod damage down, and the base damage of passive down. Like, crazy nerf. If I understand this correctly, this number right here is also trades against champions, right? This number right here is only against towers. So Ziggs is getting a massive passive nerf. Like, his passive is got it here. Like, really big. Now, Ziggs is probably still going to be fine. He still has QWER, right? He's still Ziggs. But, and because ADCs are sucking so much, I think Ziggs could honestly still stay in Worlds meta. I think he's still fine enough to play. But once again, I think Pro should be picking up Hui bot lane. Ludus Companion talked about this. This is realistically a nerf to the item, not a buff, but you're still going to be buying this item on the same champions as before. Shadow Flame, 5 less AP, 3 more Magic Pen, Cinderbloom Threshold up a little bit, Cinderbloom dot amp down a little bit. So this is like a nice Elise buff. Maybe some other mages that want to buy, like especially burst mages, like Vax is happy with this. Syndra if you want to build her that way. Oriana if you want to build her that way, although I don't recommend it. Storm Surge, Magic Pen 5 up, Moose Speed down. Storm Raider Threshold down. Squall range effectiveness up by 10%. Definitely a lot better buffs for range champions here on Storm Surge than Melis. Okay, then we have some really big changes that I think people don't really understand. So, Turret Bulwark, permanent resist per destroyed turret plate up by 10. Temporary resist per destroyed plate for 20 seconds, down by 20 to champion. People don't understand what this change does. The TLDR of this change is that when you lane swap in pro, and you have 3 people hitting bot tower, versus 3 people hitting top tower, the top tower is going to be infinitely more tankier than the bot tower, who's going to actually be squishier now. So this further nerfs lane swaps, because the bot lane, the people who go bot are going to be so much faster at pushing. On top of that, the damage reduction for the first 5 minutes of top lane and mid lane towers go up by 10%, which means, and this is not only 10% turret tankier, this is like 50% as far as I understand it, tankier. So basically, the people who lane swap and go top lane are probably gonna at max get 1 plate. At max, they will get 1 plate. The turret will be so tanky, you will not be able to damage it at all. This is, I truly think this is going to for sure make lane swaps weaker. Are they going to be gone? Probably not. But I think it's going to make them weaker a lot more than people think. Fleet Footwork. Melee Champion Heal. Will go from 5 to 100 to 10 to 130. Range Champion Heal will go down a lot. So this rune will be very bad for range. Melee Minion Mod Heal will go down a bit. Range Minion Mod Heal will go up a bit. This doesn't matter. Melee Move Speed is going to go up by 20 again. Range Move Speed is going to be unchanged. TLDR. Range Champion Fleet is very bad. Melee Champion Fleet is still good, much better. So Nyon and Yasuo, for example, are going to be indirectly buffed again, with Fleet being better for them. Bloodthirster, 3% less lifesteal, shield also being a lot weaker. Huge Misfortune nerf, huge Draven nerf. Late game, Bloodthirst is still going to be bought onto champions. I don't think this is going to change. I think we don't have like other items in the AD system that could replace Bloodthirster in late game. You're still going to buy it, right? Like, let's say you're playing Smolder and you have Trinity Force, Sojin, and Rapid Fire. Your 4th item is still going to be BT in most cases. And Shield Bow on range is getting gutted pretty hard. It's getting gutted pretty hard. You're losing what? Like 180 shield at level 18? I mean, that's no joke. That's no joke, right? Actually 160, I think, is the math, not 180. It's still big. It's still big. Yeah, really cool patch. I feel like they're changing a lot, which is nice. I was thinking maybe I should do like a video, my thoughts on what the world meta is going to be, and maybe like some champs that pros should consider playing, because I feel like there's so many champs that pros are not realizing are good. But I think this is also going to shake up the game a lot. The thing I'm most curious about is what's going to happen in ADC. I truly believe ADC is reaching this really weird territory where most ADCs are starting to suck, and utility is taking over. And now with Fleet being nerfed, with Ashe being nerfed, Jhin is getting a bit worse here and there, but he's still going to be fine. Ziggs now being nerfed. Are people going to realize they should be playing other AP carries bot lane? I think Hui, Karthus, I don't know, maybe something else. Maybe we're going to figure out something else. Maybe we're going to take bruisers there, or we're still going to play ADCs now. ADC players are not good by adapting. We're still probably going to see mainly ADCs, but I truly think that I feel like ADCs are not that good. And you can easily probably play a lot of like AP majors bot lane these days. Not sure what else to say. I feel like there's a lot of champs that are really good and people are like kind of sleeping on them. For Worlds especially as well. Really insane patch, really big patch. This is like the biggest patch I've seen in a long time from Riot. Like seriously, holy moly. They cooked, I love it. Honestly, like I wish like most patches would be like that. This makes the game so much more fun.